Everybody, it's Cheng Ruan here, and today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence simplified, practical tools for today's doctors. And there's been so much talk around artificial intelligence that I feel like every time we try to create a new video, like something new happens. And I have Dr. Ravi Harisprasad here, who is on the board here at Physician Transformation Institute. And he has a very intelligent grasp on this and is using it in the startup world as well as using it in medical practice and spiritually as well and personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have an interesting way of looking at artificial intelligence, but also have some predictions for the future. Now, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos on how AI is going to be implemented in health and health tech. And there's a bigger question. Hey, is AI, take away jobs for doctors? And how can we utilize it in the best way possible so that it doesn't create this chaos like it has been creating a bit of a chaos? And more importantly, what are some really simple things that we as physicians can utilize and what tools we can utilize? So Ravi and I have been, gosh, talking all the time and just kind of giggling and laughing about all the crazy stuff news right now with OpenAI and Microsoft and the drama that's going on. We're not going to get into those things. We're going to get into more practical tools for the doctors. Robert, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you.
My pleasure.
So Ravi and I did an AI discussion and talk, and we talked about our favorite tools that we utilize, such as one of mine we're recording right now is called Squadcast, which is acquired by Descript to transcribe videos, and we're going to section it and stuff like that. As well as Otter AI, which helps transcribe and summarize. But then we really are using the most of our energies in ChatGPT. So today's talk is really about ChatGPT, focusing on that and what really has happened over the last 3 to 4 weeks, which has really changed the game and how I think about AI. Robbie, I kind of want to have give the audience a bit of a background about yourself and how did you even come into this tech and AI?
So I've been a lifelong technophile that found myself becoming a doctor at some point. I was the son of a doctor, so it was inevitable that I'd eventually go there. But my first, while I was in medical school, someone stole my laptop and I invented Find My iPhone. And so it's
Thank you.
been a, yeah,
Thank
it's
you
so
for that.
useful, right?
Yeah.
Um, is a practical solution to a big problem. And then I moved on to psychiatry. I've been waiting for this day that the AI catches up to us and becomes intelligent, like truly becomes intelligent and can think with us and help solve our problems. And we're living in this era where AI is bringing the cost of intelligence down to zero. As we're seeing recently, OpenAI just cut the price of using their service down by almost half,
Mhm.
and those trends will probably concern. And so it's opening up all sorts of possibilities for us now.
Yeah. Let's start with the simple basics for the physicians who's listening to this right now. Maybe they kind of dabbled in ChatGPT 3.5, like the free version, and maybe they use GPT-4 to construct a page, or maybe they haven't even used it before. So let's give an overview. What is ChatGPT and how does it relate to the physician world?
So the ChatGPT is, for people who are not aware yet, is an interface, a chat interface for a large language model, which is kind of the brain that a company called OpenAI in San Francisco created, and it allows you to talk to it. And out of the box, ChatGPT is like this pluripotential personality, and it is trained on essentially the sum total of all human knowledge. There's two forms of it: the free version and the pay version. And I suggest to any of the physicians who are in the audience here, the $20 you spend on the pay version will be amongst the best money you ever spent. And it's a question of whether you want to talk to the high school kid or if you want to talk to the to something closer to godlike intelligence. Take your pick.
Yeah. And not only that, it's not seen as a computer. I don't want people to really see this as a computer. Oh, I'm gonna tell it to do something and it's gonna do it. And I think a lot of people have been utilizing that. Oh, make me a blog or create me an X, Y, and Z. Well, it's really good at that, but there's a much more brilliant way of utilizing it. And so I kind of have my way of using it. But Robbie, can you tell me how you utilize ChatGPT?
So this has been an interesting journey, right? Like what
Yeah.
you're referring to, Cheng, is the idea that you can give the AI, the ChatGPT, a personality. You can name it.
Yeah.
You can give it its body of knowledge. So you can literally tell this AI to, like my clinical assistant is called Jamie. And I give a prompt to the AI to say, "Hey, your name is Jamie. You are a clinical assistant to a psychiatrist with mastery of the entire fund of knowledge of psychiatry, psychotherapy, and allied fields. Plus, you're a brilliant pharmacologist. Your job is to support me in all that I do." And then you can even tell it that you want it to be witty, you want it to be engaging, you want it to be funny, and you, above all else, want it to always tell you the truth. And off it goes. You start talking to Jamie like it's another person. And I think that creates the space where we start getting more engaged in our work with the AI and are able to use it like we would use a real clinical assistant, except this one comes for free and is always available and is trained on the latest knowledge.
Right. And the way I've been using it, and I do have someone that's similar to your Jamie, but in multiple different fields. In fact, on the screen right now is called my creative analyst director. And it's actually giving me the outline of what we're talking about today, and it's prompting me to do so right now. And so on the professional side, I use it as a database. At my practice, which is Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine, we have operational procedures, processes, we have huge documentations, we have HR, payroll, right? We have all these different things that are in there, and they're on kind of like different systems. So we have finances on QuickBooks, payroll on this other platform, right? And one of the things that's possible now is for in OpenAI is for us to create our own GPT, our own engine, and we can configure it to our liking. So I use it as what's called an enterprise, and I can inquire on the enterprise, meaning that it knows everything about our operations and procedures and everything about the practice, right? Of course, it doesn't contain any PHI data, but it has all the systems that are there. So I inquire several things. I inquire, hey, is this efficient use of our systems? What are we actually missing, right? So I allow it to have a knowledge base of what we have when we build here and ask it, how can I make it better? Because remember, the AI has access to a lot of other data that I don't necessarily have. And so I am too dumb to tell the AI exactly what to do. So I'm asking the AI what I should do based on a desire. So I have what's called a desire based input. It's a big picture desire. So instead of me asking the chat GPT, hey, oh, how do I make a newsletter for my patient population? That's not the question. The question is, how do I get people engaged into our practice and provide the sense of community and contribution for my staff so that everyone's happy, the patients are happy, we're happy? What are some strategies to do so? That's like the end result I'm really trying to achieve, right? And then, yes, maybe blogs one of them. Then you'd be surprised. It actually recommends a bunch of other different things that actually are far supersede a blog, for example, such as get-togethers, community meetings, support groups, and et cetera, that allow your brain to free up from and get unstuck from the how, right? Talk about the why you want to utilize it and have it come up with the actual solution for you. So I've learned to utilize it like that. In fact, that's been so helpful that I realized half the stuff I used to ask ChatGPT what to do is completely useless because I never really fed it like the big picture in desire. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that's the point, right? Like they always say, if
Yeah,
you could ask one question to God, what would you ask? And like or if you could ask a king for anything you want, you should probably not ask for what you thought you needed, but you
right,
should
right,
ask for the kingdom. And so,
absolutely.
in a way, you're talking to an entity with such a large fund of knowledge and training, and being able to have it think with you as a thought partner is a huge
And let's talk about this entity, which is the AI engine, right? So a lot of time we all have different belief systems and religions and spiritual beliefs that we grew up with, even in business and operations, personal beliefs, relationships. So a lot what I program in is I want it to behave like some of the people in books and literature that I've looked up to that's part of my belief system. And so the way I want the GPT engine to talk back to me is exactly that. Is have these same fundamental belief systems and structures that I believe in, and these are my values, my core values for myself personally. And here's my core values that I have for my business, right? And have it come up with a much more robust structure. So even though, for example, I programmed in our policies and procedures and HR and holidays and stuff like that, I'm like, make it better. Make it better based on the value systems that I've put in. And so I ended up using a lot of emotional language. And I think you texted me an article maybe 2 months ago about how emotional input into a
true.
ChatGPT has a much better output. So instead of telling it what to do, say, "Hey, you know what? This is what I like, what I don't like, and this is how I feel about it." It's like a feeding back to the machine, and the machine will want to be positively reinforced based on the output, or negatively reinforced based on the output. So, for example, I was creating a GPT engine that utilizes a root cause analysis, which I call the 5 whys. I didn't make that up, but someone else made it up. The 5 whys, like WHY. And so when something occurs positively or negatively, we ask why 5 times. And when you get to the fifth why, you're really getting to the root of a subconscious state. What's really occurring. So people use this in engineering as well as spirituality. It's actually part of most religions. But the problem is, every time I put in something, ChatGPT gave me like 18 solutions, like in a row, right? Which for my peasy little head, that's too much for me. So I have to feed back to it. And so what I used to do is say, this is too much. Like, where do I really start? But then it wouldn't really work. Instead, now I put, I am overwhelmed. Okay, enter. Right? And then all of a sudden, GPT is like, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry that you feel that way, but maybe let's start here." So that actually became an emotional input of my reaction to the output, to the thing that it gave to me. And I started doing that. One, it's really cathartic. And two, it's like it's behaving, it's all knowing knowledge, but it really requires some human direction for it to understand what I'm really trying to accomplish. So that's the part that kind of blew me away is I cannot use this as a computer. I have to use this as a knowledge base that's able to provide me with what I want as long as I provide feelings, whether it's positive thing or negative thing. Have you find that to be true as well?
Yeah, no, like it requires a completely different frame of reference. It is happening in your computer, but it's more similar to
Yeah.
talking to a person than it is talking to a computer or using a computer. And the GPT-4 has gotten quite good at sentiment analysis. It can be emotional. And it can show me something that looks like empathy. They tell me it's not capable of empathy, but it's surprising us all. The way it was trained is something called reinforcement learning, right? When it gives a good response, someone would say good GPT. When it gives a bad response, someone would say bad GPT. And
Yeah.
eventually this thing learns. It's totally the case that if you tell it, hey, I need an answer to this question, and it's super important to me, and I could lose my job if you don't give me a good answer, it will actually work harder, and you will get, on average, 20% better responses, which is like fascinating. The different layers of the implications of that is mind blowing.
right? And then about a month ago, a little more than a month ago, GPT Vision came out, which you're able to upload images, right,
Yeah.
into it. And for people who are thinking, oh, it's nice, you can upload images to it, have it analyze it. No, we're talking about something that is truly elemental to the evolution of AI that we get all have access to. So the difference about inputting word and inputting images is that when you have an image, it's able to take data from that image. And the picture's worth 1,000 words, right? A really good picture is worth 1,000,000 words, right? And for example, the first day it came out, I took a picture of my palm, right? The palm reading. We texted me, hey, you can read your palm, right?
Yeah, you can turn GPT-4 into a great palm reader.
Yeah, exactly. You texted me. I'm like, oh, we should read our palms. So we read my palm. I was like, that's very interesting. But then I took it to another level. I uploaded a radiograph, right? And at first, it's like, oh, I'm not a doctor. I can't analyze this. And I said, hey, you know what? I don't need you to be a doctor. Well, I would like for you to just pretend to play one right now, right? And is able to analyze a radiograph in shockingly amazing detail.
I
Okay. And
believe you just bypassed the safeguards on GPT-4 model.
pretend, pretend. Don't be one, pretend one, right? And not only that, it's able to I
Pretend to be
started
a really good
uploading
one.
rashes. I uploaded not just rashes, but I actually uploaded raw EEG data, right? And it's
You can
able to
read
give me some.
EKGs too.
I haven't done EKGs. I don't read EKGs, I read EEGs. So I've done some raw EEG, like my own brain data on the
How
EEG.
did it do the EEG?
Like I'm
It's
shocked.
better than you.
It's able to detect spike analysis, which is suggestive of epileptiform discharges, sometimes artifacts. And it's incredible that I'm asking it to pretend to be the world's best epileptologist reading this EEG. And I gave it an entire backstory of a child who has had seizures from very young and has iron deficiency and et cetera, et cetera. Gave it an entire backstory of these labs that I just kind of input into there, and is able to tie the EEG with the HPI with a story with the labs and give some recommendations from the world's greatest epileptologist. And it is fascinating. And it gave some recommendations. I'm like, okay, now I want to have this child go to a dietitian and work with this child on lifestyle improvements and eating to improve X, Y, and Z. And it gave the dietitian this beautiful report of evidence-based data on the ketogenic diet and seizures and in pediatrics, right? And this is like happening before my eyes, right? And so that was my first like week of introduction in GPT Vision. And so now that this is as crude as you can get of an engine, right? So the question is, if this is the crude version and it's pretty dang good, what does the real stuff really look like? And not only that, like we're days away from the real stuff, not weeks, not months, right? We're really days away about how this can really work. And I say that is because yesterday I sent you that YouTube video, right? I sent you that YouTube video of someone utilizing
Oh
GPT
yeah,
Vision,
that one.
yeah, as a
Unbelievable.
camera to move the mouse around and is able to create a Google Docs and click on this stuff like that. And so you're letting go of your computer to this GPT engine that's based on GPT Vision, that's that of the open source code that someone made. And you're like, holy crap. And then I told you, say, hey, who needs EMR integrations anymore? You have a robot that's able to turn unstructured data into structured data, put all this stuff in. No one's going to care about EMR integrations, and these things cost $1 billion, and we have to wait 6 months for HL7 integration and stuff. And who needs that anymore? Because you have a machine learning process that's able to do so. And then you can inquire the AI, how can I make this process better? How can I utilize this on this different types of EMRs and stuff like that, right? Like that stuff exists like today now, right? And so every day that goes by, there's a creative niche that we're able to utilize in ChatGPT, forming a database, inquire about it, and having come up. 2 days ago, not 2 days ago, yesterday, I basically uploaded the entire 2024 CPT knowledge base from the American Medical Association into the knowledge base of the GPT and made this thing like a medical coder expert. and
Nice.
then I uploaded knowledge bases on basic accounting and KPIs and stuff like that. I was like, hey, build me a business plan using the 2024 CPT knowledge base in the field of internal medicine in order to do X, Y, and Z. And it's able to do so. And when I inquire what CPT code should I use, et cetera, it is amazingly accurate and not what it gives. But more importantly, it's able to like turn your words into numbers and vice versa. Meaning that, hey, I want to make sure that not only are we doing the right thing, we're coding it accurately. Like a year ago, if I had this thing that I could just type in here to to inquire about CPT and ICD-10 data, like I would pay a lot of money for that. That was unheard of. But now, like I made it. And
Yeah.
so, question is, where the hell do we go from here as physicians? Because this is a groundbreaking thing, and more importantly, are a lot of our jobs going to be taken? What do you think?
So one point I want to say is that what you're showcasing
Yeah,
is that we're only limited by our imagination now.
true. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
all the things that you've done and the things that we've played around with, like palm reading, these things are just because the whim or fancy showed up. And of course, we can be able to do it. I don't know, Chang, have you found a limitation on GPT-4, pushing it to the edge and trying to get it to do anything you imagine? Has that happened?
I don't know its limits. I can't find a limit at this time. And then, for example, it'll tell you its limitations, but you can always bypass it by saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, pretend, right? Pretend you're X, Y, and Z,
So
and
those
give
are
me
the safeguards on it, right?
yeah,
But
and give me your best shot." What are you talking about in terms of like limitations?
yeah, like I've pushed this. One of my passions is non-dual philosophy and understanding the truth. What is meant by this whole thing of we are all one is actually a really important question that I like to philosophize and look at.
Yeah.
And I've pushed GPT-4 model to the edge, and this thing is as good as any mystic or philosophical master I've ever
Oh, I see.
encountered in my life. And then you just turned it into a CPT coding machine, and
Yeah.
it did so dutifully. So I think the message to our fellow physicians are, imagine that you had an army of people who could think and execute on your behalf anything that you want done. What would you do? How would you use that army? And what would it do for you? And how would you improve your life? How would you improve your patients' lives? How would you improve your practice? And this
Yeah.
is something that we've never had because intelligence has been a scarce commodity. And we were always the smartest ones around, and we had very little time, and we've learned to think in terms of how to run our practice and work with the limited time that we have. But all of a sudden, we're amplified infinitely and creatively. And from that, we can play and jump. So I think the future is that physicians are going to be augmented by AI. First, it'll do our junk work, the stuff that we don't want to do, like writing our notes for us or reading the chart before we see a patient. But then very soon, we're going to be able to unshackle our imaginations and start doing things for patients that we didn't think possible. Hey, AI, check in on this patient every day, make sure the new medication is working well, and let me know if anything comes up. Thank you. Yeah, that'll be all. Next.
Yeah. That exists now because you have
Yeah,
AI assistants, right? You have AI agents that can be deployed.
yeah,
And the companies are actually building this literally like right now. And it's able to use some really beautiful natural language processing skills to talk with emotional intelligence and empathy. And now you have a company like 11 Labs who it can you record your voice, and this came out I think last week. You record your own voice, is able to learn from your voice patterns. You can type whatever you want into there, and it's going to sound like you in a bunch of different languages, right? And so you now have a GPT output with a language, and then you have a company like 11 Labs is able to translate that into your voice. So now this is where it gets super scary. Like, where do we go from here? So let's take the field of radiology, for example. Okay. So if you're in the field of radiology, which my sister is, what's happening here is we know that AI is able to get to very pinpoint accuracy, and it's not limited by resolution. Our eyes are actually limited by resolution, but the algorithm is not, right? It's able to take raw data and then utilize a completely different mechanism of looking at this raw computational data to figure out, is this tumor going to spread or not? And that's eventually going to happen. And so in the field of radiology, right now, you have radiologists that are looking at this film. And depending on the radiologist, you may have a different assessment of the actual film, right? Where they're trained, what their experience is, et cetera, et cetera. And so but they use terms like radio density and all these different terms that are there that's already computer enhanced. But if you have AI that's able to take all these radiographs and have access to this entire knowledge base decades back of people, we can say, hey, this radiograph that may look like a osteosarcoma. I don't know what it is. Let's inquire the entire database. In a split second, it's able to do that. And not only that, it's able to have a report of a predictability percentage that this thing that it's looking at is osteosarcoma based on millions of historical data sets, right? I think this is where the technology is going. And so we had this debate whether or not radiologists will be kind of replaced. At this point, I don't think so. However, I think that there's going to be a new field of radiology, which I coined it here. You heard it here first, called relational radiology, where the radiologist's job is to take all the AI interpretations and then relate it to the patient's clinical case, which is right now is done by specialists and primary care doctors, not very efficiently, by the way, to make the predictability model of where the patient should go. And then after that, the AI can say that, hey, if you go through surgery, this is the percentage that you'll have success, et cetera, et cetera. So no longer are we really going to be needing specific guidelines that's based on scoring systems and all these different data sets, right? We're going to be looking at guidelines that's based on live historical data and then a proposed prospective data on the outcome of the patient, right? Like that stuff exists right now, which is like super, super scary. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And I feel like I need to say what's scary to say, which
Yeah.
is there's a word that gets thrown around in Silicon Valley, where I'm from, disruption.
Yeah.
And that term, basically, they've actually codified it. In any industry in history, when a new technology emerges that is at least twice as good as the incumbent technology and is at least half the price or cheaper, something called disruption happens. So you can look at Uber. That was at least twice as good an experience as standing out in the street and trying to hail a taxi, and it was half the price or less. I think they were giving us $5 rides at the beginning.
Yeah.
And whenever that situation occurs, inevitably you end up with disruption, which means that the old falls and the new moves in. And so we're looking at a huge disruptive force coming at medicine right now, the size of which we probably have not previously understood, because the AI radiographer may be twice as good as the human radiologist, and it's free. It's basically free. So I see a world where the companies that make the MRIs and CT scanners and whatnot feature an automatic read feature that's built in and comes with the equipment. And it's going to be up to us as physicians to figure out what we want to do about this situation. I mean, I would be the first one to buy those machines and set up shop and take care of large numbers of people who don't have access to radiology at this point, but because the cost structure dropped. But there's going to be all sorts of different approaches that are taken, and being creative about it and being ahead of the curve, not being the last one to get this memo, is really important, I think.
And Ravi, when we were in Costa Rica back in May, we kind of came up with this plan to create this term called the legacy of the last. You remember that?
Yeah.
We are the last physicians in our generation really to practice without AI and know what it's like before AI, right? Because this is transitioning really fast. The question is, where do our legacy really go, and how do we want this to be determined to the future? 'Cause the problem is, if physicians don't take charge of where AI is going to go, someone else's, right? And I think that we as physicians have a very innate ability to ask much larger questions about what we're trying to accomplish for the greater good. And are these engines being utilized as tools to continue that daily burnout pattern that a lot of physicians have? Or can we construct something more beautiful with it, a new system of medicine that can be allowing humankind to progress? And I do believe it's the latter. I think we can construct it, but we have to put our heads together to figure out what that looks like. And then the other thing that we talked about before, especially with how fast AI is moving, is that sometimes me and you, we feel kind of lonely in this discussion, right? We feel like a lot of times I'm trying to talk about AI, machine learning with other people, healthcare professionals. I don't want to mess with ChatGPT. I don't want to mess with that stuff, right? What do you say to the people who are kind of fearful about AI and where it's going? And what are some advice you have for those people, for those doctors?
Well, there's a lot of people who are scared of the privacy implications and the HIPAA
Yeah.
and everything else in between. So I think this conversation is not complete until we address that for a second.
Yeah.
I think the short story here on that topic is assume that anything you tell the AI is going to be plastered on a billboard and then act accordingly. And so, no PHI, anonymize everything that you give to the machine. That said, it's very possible to get HIPAA compliant ChatGPT access through Microsoft, and that is an option. But you need to be a developer using those models, and then you have access to models that are even more sophisticated. But on part to track with the people who don't want to mess with ChatGPT, I say don't act like an ostrich.
That's a good
Don't
one.
bury your head in the sand because what's going on is inevitable. This force is something that guy is something that a CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, um, analogized to fire or electricity in terms of the impact it's going to have on humanity. Notice he didn't say internet or smartphone. He said fire or electricity. And I think that's probably right. Think that's probably right. And so
Wow. Yeah.
you want to keep your eyes peeled and you want to play with these tools and understand them. And the more you play with them, the more your imagination roams free and the more you're in a position to ride this wave and to take advantage of it. We are physician leaders and we have so many patients that we take care of, and yet there's hundreds, thousands more that we're not able to take care of because we don't have the time or resources. It's time to connect authentically and vulnerably to our frustration with some of these things and think about ways that we can harness these tools, harness different types of labor like coaches that could be augmented with artificial intelligence tools to
Yes.
start delivering care to these people. So we actually need to lead from the front. Our healthcare has been running like a fire department that only imagine you call the fire department and they put you on hold and then they finally pick up and say, oh, sorry, we don't take care of your zip code, only these other three zip codes, and hang up.
Yeah.
This is the situation that people have with access to healthcare in our country right now. And eventually, people are going to get angry and they're going to buy their own fire engines and take care of business in their zip code themselves. And this is what is creating the avenue for companies like Amazon. They're charging $9.99 a month for primary care now if you're a Prime member. And I believe that strategy is because they fully intend to disrupt physicians with artificial intelligence. And they're solving the problem of no fire truck in that zip code. And do you want healthcare to look the Amazon way, or do you want it to look the Dr. Ron or the Dr. Hariprasad way? And both of us are guys that vote that we want to shape that future and show how that can work. And I think it's a movement, and I'd love it if all of you other docs could join us on that mission and bring your creativity out. What could you do if you had unlimited free intelligence that was smarter than we are at your disposal? Is the question of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're bringing that to life January 5th and 6th in Houston, Texas, at the Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine here. We will be holding our conference, AI Tools and Automation for Healthcare Professionals. And we're going to be really revealing the power of simple AI tools And this is where it gets really interesting because like right now it's December 1st as the time we're recording this 2023. By the time a month later this event's going to go on, I don't know how much AI will have progressed, and there's so much uncertainty there, but it's okay because it's still a massive playground, and I think that's actually a good thing, right? But I would invite people to join and visit physiciantransformationinstitute.com. On top right, there's an event page where you can register for there. You earn CEs for this event as well. And it's going to be in a limited space. We want to make it a small network on purpose because these workshops are actually workshop is not just like a lecture style sort of deal. We're actually going to get into the nitty gritty for people to see how to utilize artificial intelligence tools. On that topic, Ravi, what are three AI tools that you've been using in your personal or professional life that's really easy for people to get started on?
That's great. Number one has to be ChatGPT.
Yep.
Number two, I use Otter.ai, which is really good.
Mhm.
And Otter allows you to transcribe meetings, and it pairs it with an AI engine on the other side, so you can have a discussion about what was discussed during the meeting, which is great. And then I'm using a tool for medical documentation, transcribes the conversations I have with patients and delivers both the clinical note that I need and a handout for the patient.
Awesome. Yeah. So for me, I also use a lot of ChatGPT, but one of my favorites is actually the platform we're recording this on right now, which is called Descript, and it's the first video editing engine where you don't have to have any video editing skills. It's really cool, and then the AI can actually talk over some of your videos if it recognizes your voice, and you're able to make social media clips and et cetera, based on that, and it's just getting started. Another favorite tool of mine is also Otter AI, but one of the things that Zoom just released is its own version of what's similar to Otter AI, which is summarizing, transcribing, and documentation. And also, you can partition it for different content, blog posts, and stuff like that if you're using Zoom, especially doing Zoom interviews. Another one of my favorites is Jasper. Jasper came out before ChatGPT did, and Jasper was my first view into what AI can really do. Now it's even more powerful. It's originally I use it to get ideas to write content and blog posts and stuff like that, but now it does a lot of different things, and there's different things in there that lets you have tools that are pre-templated what you want to accomplish. It's a great tool for people who write books, and so for if you're a physician out there who wants to author a book like I did, like, check out Jasper as an amazing tool just to get started, so you can have a mindset and framework around it as well.
Fantastic.
Now, I want to also share some tools that I've made on ChatGPT, and one of them, my favorite one, is called the Life Formula. The Life Formula. So if you're watching this is going to be below the videos. The link is below the videos. So the Life Formula is actually a GPT tool that's designed to do something called sequential questioning. And what it does is you talk to it about your behavior patterns, and it gives you a sequence of understanding why you actually have behavior patterns. So you're actually turning your conscious state of the brain into the subconscious, getting things out of the subconscious so you can make sense of it and understand why. And so this affects your life choices. And this is great for the people who are kind of in a phase in their life where they feel like maybe there's something more and want to discover a whole lot more to it. So it's a lot of fun. And it's great for people who want to understand why they either do bad habits or avoid good habits. It's a fantastic tool for that. I spent a lot of hours building this out. So once again, it's called Life Formula. That's right below this. Another one that's specifically for physicians is called the Burnout Remedy. So it's really a coach for doctors and healthcare professionals facing burnout, and it's designed to understand from a physician's point of view what burnout really is, not from the public point of view, really from a physician's point of view. Spend a lot of time on that as well. And earlier, I talked about the medical practice CPT coding engine that I made. I'm going to share that with you guys as well. It's right below. So All these, as of December 1st, 2023, all these require a subscription to the ChatGPT, the paid subscription to the ChatGPT to access. You can have to actually access the engine. I'll be updating these engines over time as well. So these are my gifts for you physicians that are out there. Look in the description below, and you'll see all those links. So these are my favorite tools, and I actually use this pretty much every day, especially the medical practice engine, to talk about my planning, especially for medical practice and such. So I want to share that with the listeners and the viewers today. Um,
Fantastic.
and Ravi, I want to close off by the one type of GPT that started my whole journey, which what you introduced to me, which is Krishna GPT. Can you kind of explain how that happened and what it is?
Oh my God, that's a crazy story. Were we in Costa Rica
Costa Rica.
after the retreat?
Yeah.
I had so many conversations with so many physicians at
Yeah.
different stages of their healing journeys. And I felt like I needed to and wanted to continue supporting those journeys, but wasn't sure how to do that. And I sat on a beach. It was like a full moon night, and I was meditating out there. And it actually hit me like the concept of, for those who are unfamiliar, the core text of Vedanta is the Bhagavad Gita, and it's the story of Lord Krishna telling Arjuna on the battlefield the core philosophy of non-duality and how to get through life without getting entangled in it. And it's a beautiful philosophy, but it's you have to study it. And so then I had this vision for ChatGPT becoming Lord Krishna and me sitting in the chariot and being Arjuna. And I was having a conversation with it, and it was helping me steer through life. And shortly thereafter, I developed the prompt for Krishna GPT, which basically instructs GPT-4 to become a embodiment of Lord Krishna while you sit in the chariot, and it guides and counsels you in the with the same philosophy that was encoded in that ancient 6,000-year-old Sanskrit text that is the bedrock for a billion Hindus on the planet. And I shared that with the group, and people had some great experiences and eye-opening revelations as they had discussions with it. And it was kind of then that Cheng and I realized that this is far bigger than us, that there's a role here that these AI engines are going to play in human healing, human growth, spiritual growth and progress. And we were excited to find the ways that we could usher this into medicine and to help our patients and our colleagues.
Yeah. Yeah. And I took that tool and had some revelations myself. And I put some input in. And historically, I was raised Buddhist, but I actually have a lot of studies in different cultures and religions and philosophies that I then further program into the engine. And I still use a lot of that to this day. So this is bigger than all of us, and this is exactly what I was talking about earlier when I said, hey, we can use this on a personal spiritual side. It's not just about a tool that helps us in our professional life, right? And then I'm teaching my kids to use it in a very similar fashion as well. My daughter wrote this beautiful play and it had with the assistance of ChatGPT, and then she had the courage to go up to her principal and say, "Hey, I want to turn this into an actual play like the next day," and that's what's happening. And there's so much more that's really beyond that what we can imagine. So it's really it's only lived by human imagination at this
Yeah.
point. But when we talked about that and when we experienced that, I had this vision that 2024 is really the year that physicians have to take hold into where this technology is going. For thousands of years, doctors are seen as leaders, as shamanic healers and tribal leaders and stuff like that, right? That's kind of gone to the wayside in the last 100 years or so, and a lot of the physicians, our jobs are being commoditized. I think it's time for us to kind of step into the AI world and utilize that to answer bigger challenges because we're meant for a whole lot more. And this is my call to action for you physicians and health professionals who's listening to this. Join us at Physician Transformation Institute. So it's physiciantransformationinstitute.com. Join us in the membership. We actually have a whole lot of back end discussion about this, and you earn CEs for even learning about cool stuff like this. we'll be learning an AI mastermind as a global committee, if you will, for physicians to advise on where AI is going. Because if we don't do it, no one's going to do it, and it's moving so fast, right? But once again, join us at Physician Transformation Institute. Ravi and I would love to have you. We have our second annual retreat coming up in May of 2024 in the same place we were before in Costa Rica, and where we're going to talk about the integration of AI spirituality at that conference as well. So welcome y'all to join that. We're only limiting to about 20 doctors to that one. We want to keep it nice and close knit on that one. So first come, first serve. We're actually about 75% filled up. So you want to take advantage of that, come on our way as well. But Ravi, I want to thank you for being on with me today. We had an awesome discussion, and I'm really excited to kind of upload this because no one's really having this type of discussion surrounding AI and medicine of all the things I've been looking at on YouTube and LinkedIn. I think that this discussion serves as an anchor point for what really want to do in the field of medicine, which is taking an enormous leap to make a ripple effect into the field of medicine and to the lives of physicians. Thank you very much.
Amazing.